Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, Adam, Sensual Goat, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server, so welcome one and all.
Let's get it on!
Evening.
Evening?
Hello.
I'm only here to learn.
Was that an Aussie evening I heard?
Sure is.
Oh, it's late for you guys, is it not?
It's 11 p.m.
Yeah, that's rounding out time, innit? That's winding down, getting your toothpaste out time. Yeah, good for you guys. What's the date there?
Criminal.
Are you ahead of us or behind us? You're behind us, right? In Oz. You're about to go into the 11th, correct? Today is the 10th.
No, it's the 11th here today, I think. We're in front of us.
Oh, so you're ahead of us. Oh, okay. Should really know. Not that it matters. Completely arbitrary.
Yeah, because of the tilt of the Earth.
Time
We're in
zones,
front.
Nathan. Time zones. It proves you're on a sphere.
Yeah, you just interrupted Jardo making that ironic point. But go ahead, Jardo.
Yeah, because of the tilt of the Earth, we're a little bit in front.
Yeah, when you say the tilt of the Earth, do you mean the degree that's described with respect to a plane when tilting a rotating plane of reference? Is that what you're talking about? It is. Spoiler. It's disappeared temporarily. But yes, that is what's talked about when measuring a plane of reference for axial rotation or a degree of tilt with respect to a plane, describing the motion of stars. And a mathematical description of a tilt will also be with respect to that plane of reference that the measurements of the stars to make this inference were made from in the first instance. In other words, the stars are being measured with respect to a plane of reference to create a system that allows for an axial tilt inferred with respect to a plane of reference mathematically, heliocentrically. How fascinating. Meanwhile, Earth's a plane of reference. Nice that we can describe the motion of the stars with this over-elaborate, reified description of heliocentrism, that is.
Yeah, but how can there be? How can Earth be flat if there's a 24-hour sun anywhere?
Non sequitur. Having a 24-hour sun has an absolutely zero bearing on whether or not the ground that we are measuring and referencing, everything, including but not limited to the angle with respect to the plane of reference that we can describe the sun above the horizon for 24 hours. That's also axiomatically tied with the measurement to a flat plane. So telling me that having a 24-hour sun has a non sequitur dictatorial influence on the plane we describe it when measuring it is, as I already suggested, non sequitur, Neil.
Yeah, but they show you how it works on a sphere, Nathan. They show you a picture and they show
Telling
you
me
it's circling, and that's the only can work on a sphere.
No. They don't show me Jack. Telling me how mathematically you can take a plane of reference and create a sphere to be within, to then put in motion around the sun to describe how that model reified into existence would actually have a physical bearing on the motion of the sun, measured to create the model you're inferring has a influential bearing on the sun? Ludicrous.
Well, I saw the picture. I seen it. They showed the globe spinning, and the only way a 24-hour sun would work was if it was a glob. So therefore, glob.
Therefore, the glob that we measured and created with respect to the plane that was measured flat to create it makes the glob that we created from the flat plane the reason we have the 24-hour sun. Yeah, that's reification. And if you're going to claim non-causal influence from a reified mathematical model, then that's absurd and reification.
Well, then you tell me how you have a 24-hour sun in the region.
Why would I don't know the cause of the sun? Got it? Meanwhile, we measure Earth flat with the sun. There's a quite prolific group of people who went down there recently, in the last 6 months, and all of them, without exception, measured Earth flat to give us data about that sun. Its angle with respect to a plane of reference being one example, or its rotation with respect to a levelled tool being another. All of them, that would be the Antarctic expedition crew, measured Earth flat. There are no exceptions. All of them took measurements, and they were all flat. Just so we're clear about how Earth was dealt with in Antarctica with respect to the sun being above the horizon for 24 hours. Earth was, and always will be, I might add, measured flat to give us that information. Thank you, Antarctic explorers, some of whom are very shilly and now suggest that Earth isn't flat after levelling tools with respect to a plane of reference and documenting the angle of elevation of the sun for 24 hours straight. And that flat Earth prerequisite, meaning that Earth isn't flat, is again kind of absurd and maybe being paid for. I don't know why someone would do that. Idiocy doesn't seem to come into it. You can't be that stupid.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, everything you just laid out, why are they not, like, understanding that, but they'll look at a picture of a model and show you that the only way it works is if the Earth was a sphere, but you'll accept that, but not accept the outright measurements. It drives me insane.
They need the measurement. That's why I would suggest that when they start telling us in future that Earth's a sphere, and then you go, oh, how interesting. Tell me all about it. What got measured? The moment they reference a flat plane for their measurements, as they always do, demand that they get on their knees and accept the flat plane of reference that they are measuring for their example. And if they don't, say, I'm not interested in your example if you can't accept your own friggin' measurement. Yeah? That needs a flat Earth. Now, axiomatically, the globe Earth requires Earth be measured flat to create that reifiable idea of Earth being a sphere described from within a ball after taking measurements off a plane of the stars and their motions. Now, if you're going to suggest to me that we are in a ball moving in an orbital motion created by Copernicus after he measured Earth flat, oh, hell no. No, Earth was measured flat to create that idea that you're now telling me is a reifiable, justifiable, causal influencer of an appearance of the sun above the horizon measured flat. No, we just measured Earth flat to describe that. I don't have an explanation for what the sun is. I wouldn't dare. Let's just call it God's handiwork. Why does it do that? I don't know. I'm not God. But I do know we measured Earth flat to give us this information. Like the news bulletin that we were provided from them and their own handiwork levelling tools with respect to a plane of reference, describing angles of elevation of the sun for 24 hours. Yeah, they're all flat Earth proving prerequisites and measurements. That is to say that their measurements prove Earth's flat. I don't need anything else or care what the sun did or why it did it. We were and will always measure Earth flat everywhere. That's how we navigate. That's how I've charted the world. It's how we fly over it and sail on it. That's how world that we deal with always, that's not me being we in this example, it's everyone always. We all deal with Earth as a flat plane, without exception. So I couldn't give a toss what the sun does. It has been axiomatically tied to some of those measurements of a flat plane that we then use in practical application to time where we are and when we're at it. So those navigational tools, in this case the sun, are useful when we measure Earth flat for navigating. So those are the things I know to be truly useful in the world that I inhabit. Why is the sun above a suggested horizon measured with angles that are flat Earth proving for 24 hours? I don't know. Does it do anything beyond prove a flat Earth? No. Maybe if I point that out to the people down there who wanted it to be a proof of a ball, they'll scream my frigging name into the snow. Because Earth's still measured flat down there, no matter how much you want to believe that down there means you're inferring ball when Earth was measured flat to create that ball. And you persist in measuring it flat when you get down there. Down there being the inference of a sphere. It isn't. Or you wouldn't be measuring it flat.
I was just going to bring Toon up. He went on a debate with Brian and he held up the measurements. And when Brian tried to explain it to him, he said, I don't care what that says. So he knows. He knows he measured Earth flat.
Yeah, I don't care if he knows. If he was like spastic to the fact that he's measured Earth flat with elevation angles that he's holding up and waving at Brian, then I don't care. I know it's flat. And the people around me know it's flat. And the people who are grateful support me financially for that fact. And I'm internally grateful for them because they keep the lights on. Just. I'm not moaning that it's just. And I'm not super rich from this. That's life. But those people around me are grateful for knowing, beyond all doubt, Earth's flat. And knowing they can prove it if challenged with a measurement of Earth. Knowing further, if they're advanced flat earthies from the Flat Earth Debate Forum, knowing that they can prove it with their opponent's own words 90% of the time. Because before long, their opponent's going to be offering them a flat Earth measurement to suggest that they can prove a ball. And you can just shove their faces in that fact that they will need to measure Earth flat. Because that's how Earth's measured.
Well, if you remember that Sunday when he did call, and he did call you, he came onto the show through Discord because thank God you started the show that day. It was historical because how ball Earth is proof flat Earth is history, you know, it's historical. But when you mentioned the measurements, he quickly started screaming and got off the line. So you hit a nerve there, Nathan.
It's because Earth's measured flat, and he'd measured it flat. He came back and waved those flat Earth measurements I was pointing out on the phone to Brian now, didn't he? Historically.
Yeah, he deflected to measurements.
Yeah, that's what he told his audience. McToon told his audience that I, quote, tried to deflect with measurements, end quote, McToon to his audience. Yeah, deflect to measurements, yeah. By coincidence, it was the 100th time I had told Toon personally that he'd measured Earth flat with elevation angles. Prior to that, it was his 10K challenge that required Earth be measured flat for elevation angles. In this instance, I told him for the 100th time, no less, while in Antarctica, that he had measured Earth flat with elevation angles, and that ticked him off royally because he was in the process of measuring Earth flat with elevation angles as I said it to him. The result was he screamed my name into the snow. Something about guns not being there or something. I mean, obviously all of those numpties had detailed how complex it was to get there and how many hoops they had to jump through. And while they were at the various different passport controls, there were armed guards that would have stopped them and shot them if they tried to get on a boat or get on a plane without the permission of all of those forms that they had to fill in and go through. But meanwhile, when they actually arrived, having jumped through all those hoops, a moron known as Toon deflected from measurements by asking where the guns were. Interesting world we live in, isn't it? Meanwhile, Earth's still measured flat by everyone always, so I couldn't give a toss. This is all inconsequential to me. I mean, it's very meaningful and very deep to people like Toon. You know, they probably hate me because of this. Like, would rather see me dead. Literally, that's how much passion they have and disdain they have for someone like me pointing out their own flat Earth measurements to them. Yeah? Because they hate themselves and how stupid they must feel for not recognising just how flat Earth is, or bracing against it for such a prolonged period in the face of their own measurements of a flat Earth. Me pointing that out makes them just want to hate me, because the only alternative is to hate themselves for their own stupidity. Better and easier in their own mind to hate me and project that onto me. And what do they get for that? They get me laughing at them for it. Yeah? Yeah, project that onto me. Tell me I'm dumb. It's actually just pure projection though, isn't it? I recognised my own stupidity and ignorance quite early on in the flat Earth endeavour. All right. Wow, how dumb am I for not seeing this earlier? I remember too QE giving the same vibe of humility to me early on when he talked about him not recognising that you can't have gas pressure without a container. Now, that's QE's rhetoric, right? At one point, QE had to have the humility to go, why the hell didn't I recognise this? And that was his moment. Now, he feels embarrassed about this. Now, I don't care. I'm going to take it on the chin if he has a go at me for this, because it's good that he has had that moment and I can talk about it. Thank God he's not here. Because it's that recognition that, yeah, it's me. It's my stupidity. It's me not recognising the dancing bear while I'm counting the balls being dribbled. I didn't notice. Yeah, it's on me, but it's easier to just say no. It's on the government. It's them. They hid this from me. It's a conspiracy. It's not me being dumb. It's a lie. It's a grand conspiracy. They're out to hide it from little old me. They were hiding God too. Yeah. Yeah, it's all a big conspiracy. Let's look into that conspiracy, because then the finger of blame is never going to point at me. Let's look for the hidden hand indefinitely.
It's funny because that's the first thing I said to QE. I was like, how did you not see that gas pressure without a container? And I didn't know that it bothered him that he didn't recognize it. So I was just, just met him and freaking just getting into all of this with you guys. And he's like, it bothered him. It did. It still bothers him that he didn't pick it up.
Because we've got other things to deal with. We've got very, very fun-packed lives with children, mortgages, debt, car payments, entropic decay and everything around you, borrowing a bit of money so you don't live a miserable life at the end of it. You know what I mean? There's a lot to concern yourself with, to not notice that you're having the wool pulled over your eyes in terms of the very nature of the reality you inhabit. The big things slip you by when you're focused on the little things intensely. Wow, doesn't time fly when you're having fun? 20 minutes into the show, we've only just started. Isn't that amazing? We all having fun on the panel? I've just been waffling away.
It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day.
Yes.
Partially that's why I was like, I'm not going to have a show today. It's been quite distressful for the audience that's live. Not that I was left it at least 20 minutes before I mentioned it. So I've been informed by doctors that my father's at the final stages of his life. So it's kind of a miserable time for me and my family at the moment, as my dad is in the, I've forgotten why they term it now. I did say it earlier. I can't remember what they call it.
Hospice?
No, when you're dying, they give it a term. Final stages of life or something like that. I can't remember how they term it. Anyway, actively dying, that's the term. Anyway, so for that reason I was going to have a day off, but in reality, doing a show is far less stressful than sitting here pondering my dad's death as it happens. So there we go. Now you know. But it is a beautiful day. He says with a massive lump in his throat.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. You are not to know.
Don't be surprised if you have another child. That's what usually happens.
Me? I don't want another kid. We haven't got space.
Well,
That's how it happened for me.
I'm saying when someone dies, usually somebody else is born in the family.
Oh, well, maybe. I don't think so. I think
The
we're
one
all
in, one out system.
Maybe life and death is a bit of a turnstile. I have no idea. I couldn't possibly ponder. Adam was talking about this the other day, about the refinement process. If you were God and you wanted to make sure that everybody was effectively, let's for the sake of ease, call it be saved. Now, you might have various interpretations of what that means, but, you know, the purification process, I think he was alluding to reincarnation when we were discussing this particular subject, would be such that you'd go through the mill many, many times till you know, were purified. So either one in, one out, turnstile analogy, maybe it's appropriate.
Well, that's reincarnation vibes, isn't it?
Yes, and that's totally, totally contradictory to what the scripture says.
Indeed. It's more Buddhist than Christian.
Oh, well, Jesus
One
said
in,
broad and
one out.
wide and straight and narrow. So you got two paths.
One in, one out doesn't comply with entropy.
No, it doesn't. Not wrong there. Straight up second law of thermodynamics violation, says Jardo, and you're not wrong.
You need 2.3 for every 2.
Why? Oh, in terms of children?
Yeah, 2.3 for every 2 to compensate for entropy. Otherwise, you're at extinction mode.
Yeah, we used to have a show on UK TV called, I think it was called 2.4 Children.
You just gave it the name entropy. People.
What are you asking,
Well,
Neil?
if your theory or your idea violates the second law of thermodynamics, then it's over. I can't remember the full quote.
What were you asking about, Neil? Whether or not people suffer entropy?
No, I'm just saying, man put the word entropy on what happens, right? God
Well,
designed
yeah.
it, and that's how he designed it.
No, yeah, that's how it's been. I see what you're saying, but the word itself is arbitrary, but that arbitrary word is being ascribed to a description of that which occurs always in the case of the second law of thermodynamics. Us ascribing words so we can convey to others a description of that which occurs always will always be just a description of that which occurs always. But that doesn't alter that which is occurring always is, as you put it, God's handiwork. Entropy in this case.
Right. And you see it at its beginning stages in if you read the book of Genesis.
Maybe. Please share the
What do you
show.
mean maybe?
It's a slightly morbid vibe, but it'd be nice if we had a few people watching. So yeah, smash that share button if you've not done so already, as we're coming up on halfway through this live show. I've no idea how many people are watching. 69. Nice.
I got 65.
It says 72 for me. Yeah.
In any event, please share the show if you've not done so already. There's plenty of flat earth evidence in the first 20 minutes. People will like it. And there's very little, if any, swearing. So nobody can moan. Everyone's going to be happy. Everyone's a winner.
No, about that, I'm just saying, moving forward with the book coming out, you want people to stumble across you or look you up and see you well represented. That's all I was saying. I'm not saying that everything that happened in the past was not justified. Just saying, moving forward. And it was because my wife would just yelled at me the other day. I didn't even realize it. I don't have headphones on because they're broke, so I have to listen to it on the phone, and it bothered her. That's all I was trying to say.
Okay. Well, we're keeping it real, I'm afraid, Neil. Sometimes we swear here. We try and keep it to a minimum on a live show.
Yeah, I know that. I'm not trying to change who you are. I understand that. But we do have control of the words we say, and you do have an extensive vocabulary.
Yes, I do find myself within an indubitable profundity of swearing. So finally having some actual numbers put on how long the book will take. And if you've watched my most recent video that I uploaded for 5 hours of me just sat there playing games and listening to stuff that's going on, I listened back to it and I'm like, yeah, I've kind of switched off a little bit, haven't I? While this is happening. Occasionally I put my 2 pennyworth in. But whatever it is, 5th, 6th redraft of this book, you know, it's kind of just happening around me at the moment. If you get that impression, that's definitely the case. But that's fine.
What does QE call you, the absentee landlord?
Yeah, Brian's like, it wants to take it away from it even being my book when he has the same sort of jab. You know, it's all in good fun, by the way. If anyone's thinking this is all done in any seriousness, it isn't. You know, we're all friends. Everyone's helping me write my book, and it's a lot of work for them. And there are huge chunks of QE and Adam who have helped the most write the book. So you can actually see that being the case on my most recent upload, and you can see some of their work being done. And it is work. They're putting in the work for my book, and I am eternally grateful to them for that. Hopefully they benefit from it, as in financially, with the way it's going to get marketed. So, you know, anybody who wants to take part in promoting the book can financially benefit from it, with the affiliate program being laid out initially, at least with the way it will be. So, and they'll get an acknowledgement. But only QE
And if you
Adam.
don't, you could think of it as you got an acknowledgement,
No,
right?
Adam and QE will get a justifiable acknowledgement in the book, right?
Absolutely. They deserve it.
Yeah. I'm not saying that other people who can think of having an acknowledgement in the book don't deserve it. And frankly, you can think of it as though you have had an acknowledgement in the book. You won't have. Adam and QE will. But nevertheless, you can think of it as having a mention too. But that's got a date on it now. So we're working ever closer towards that date. And beautiful day that it is. This is the calm before the storm. Right? There's a storm coming. These crystal clear waters. This calm. This won't last. Yeah?
Yeah, I agree. There's going to be a freaking media type something that hits the waters, and it will not be a small ripple. It's going to be a freaking, what do you call that big wave, a tsunami?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's coming. But we'll hang it in with measurements.
Yeah, well, the book's something I'm marketing and publishing and getting out there in due course. And that will be the start of that tsunami, metaphorically, as Neil's just described. And in terms of the actual sales and marketing of the book, at the moment I'm warming myself back up to that particular endeavour too, something I'm pretty good at, which is good. You know, sales and marketing is something I've done in the past as a job. So I can do it. I'm doing it at the moment with microphones to keep my head above water while we finish off that book. Now, yes, admittedly, finishing it off is actually me just sitting while the process happens in front of me, because we've gone through many drafts of the book so far. But it doesn't mean that the final stuff that's going into these final edits aren't absolutely crucial. There is still information being edited and added at the same time, which isn't necessarily good on a last draft, but by the same token, needs must, right? If that's what it requires, and Adam's flair and QE's flair being added to these sort of last stages before it does come out is, you know, only going to be beneficial. And my name's going on it, so I can only thank them. Yes, they'll get an acknowledgement, but they're still having to put in a huge amount of work, like anybody who's been involved in the book, right?
Yeah, it's always a scientific method and natural law. I always find that when those two collide, it's like a long journey.
Yeah, it's because it always ties back. The problem we're having at the moment, what Neil's describing, is while we're editing at the moment, we've got chunks of descriptions of natural laws that are being used to grease the skids of scientific method for those charlatans that haven't got it. That was pretty concise. Now, that overlaps multiple chapters. So while they're going through the editing process, they're going, does this elaborate and lengthy explanation of how natural laws are not science belong here in the gravity section? Or does it belong in the chapter that's describing us asking the question about any scientific evidence? Or, moreover, any single viable hypothesis? Where does this elaborate description of how charlatans use natural law, which is not science, it's a description, to grease the skids of a claimed science that isn't, by suggesting that their just so story is the same as the science of natural law when it describes something, but it isn't science. So that has to be somehow packaged up, perhaps in the gravity section, perhaps in the any scientific evidence section, perhaps in something that's unrelated, Cavendish section. Whatever it is we're covering, there's often the need to expand or expound on the fact that the laws of nature are convoluted with scientific methodology to grease the skids of bullshitters.
That was well summed up.
Yeah, just for those people like Brian who says, you know, write your own book. Yeah, I am. And I have to sit through the editing process. It looks like I'm playing Fortnite. I am actually playing Fortnite.
You have the ability to chew gum and walk at the same time.
You've got it. It's the end, right? It's the end. And I'm not sick of it. I am, you know, going through the motions with Adam, and I can hear the cogs turning. That sounds insulting. It isn't. When this is the process that they're, Adam and QE at the moment, going through. And it's been the same for each redraft of the book. And every time it goes through the mill, it becomes more refined. Now, there is a point where me, as the author, I'm the one with the book, I'm the namesake. Yeah. Now, everyone around me knows that I'm the one that's going to be absolutely savaged once the book comes out. Because all that's going to be the only route to undoing what is in this book is going to be the personal attacks on me. Now, the people around me know who I am and know I'm absolutely and completely prepared for this. I've dealt with it for 10 years. But that is what's facing me, right? They're not going to be able to undo what's in that book. They can misrepresent it. That's Brian's tact at the moment when Neil was asking the same question a couple of days back. It's like, well, Neil's attitude is, well, you can't argue with what's in black and white. Nah, but you can easily misrepresent it. And again, I'm prepared for that. You know, I'm prepared for my name being dragged through the mud and people trying to dig out. It's like, what? Is that something that I haven't had to deal with for the last 10 years? No, nothing's new under the sun in that regard. We're all battle-hardened from people trying to character assassinate us for 10 years. But it'll just be on a wider scale. It's like people going through the motions of trying to character assassinate somebody because they can't address the book. Why? Because it's refined. And if you do happen to be interested in this, right, if you are like, I'll be interested to buy a copy of this book and pass it on to next man I've been arguing with, or better my argumentation by reading it carefully over and over again a few times, and then knowing how to argue this subject concisely, well, for those people, go and have a look at some of the final stages of editing. I've published it, like I say, it's admittedly in a 5-hour video, but you can just whiz through to the end and just see, you know, the kind of, it's very sweary. We're men, right? We're sailors at heart, aren't we? QE, myself, Adam. We're talking about celestial navigation and swearing like sailors. That's how we are when we're talking to each other, right? And we're abusive to each other as well. We are telling each other to shut the F up quite repeatedly and constantly while we try and concentrate for a few seconds, because in that regard, we can't chew gum and walk at the same time. We're men. We need to be able to concentrate while other people around us need to shut the F up. And we will tell each other in the nicest possible way to do that. And that's how we interact. And to be honest, I'm glad in a way that Adam told me, oh, I don't want to cover these two ladies, find that they are again, so publish your material. And I'm like, okay, well, QE was against it, but now he's done his bit yesterday. I have actually published that this morning, and I felt good about it while it was coming out. I was listening to it going, now this is good. It's good to for people to see the refinement process of the book, it's a bit tedious. I'm not going to lie. It drags on because we're polishing. And polishing, if you've ever watched anybody polish anything ever, it's tedious, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you're a fan of the show, you're going to eat that up. I would have, if this would have took place in 2016 when I was just a listener on YouTube, I would have loved it.
Well,
5
metaphorically,
hours?
it's
Oh,
like when you get a
great.
car and you've had it, you're getting it repainted. Anthony Riley's just had this done, right? He's gone and got a car resprayed completely. Now, you're not necessarily part of the process of polishing that car or spraying that car. But if you can, at some stage, stick your head in the paint booth, as Anthony Riley's done, that's why I'm using this example, and take a video of it being done, you kind of feel like you've been involved in the process. Now, by the same token, if you're like, I definitely want to get hold of one of those books when they come out, for all the reasons I won't just go through again, then watch a bit of that process, because then it'll be like you appearing in the paint booth when the car's having the spray done by the professional who knows what he's doing. In this case, the editors are Adam and QE. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. Yeah, I'm the dyslexic fool that's boshed a book together, and now I'm having to have the creases and ripples and an orange peel buffed out by the pros. That's Adam and QE in this instance, right? Well, to watch them buff is a sight to behold. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not constantly in awe of them while this is going on. I'm probably playing Fortnite, as I say, but that does not mean that I do not appreciate the art and beauty of their buffing. You know what I'm getting at? And you too, if you have any intention of buying the book or reading the book or passing the book on to another third party, it's worth watching that process, because then you will feel more attachment to the cold, stark facts we lay out in the book. And I say we because you're watching the refinement of the polish go on when you watch QE and Adam do what they're doing currently. Yeah? Now, yeah, it's not the most exciting, but there's an art to refining a book or polishing a car, by analogy. And it's nice to see, and you'll feel involved if you just, like I say, check it out. That's the video that came out earlier this morning on my channel, Nathan Oakley 1980. I've called it The View because it starts off with the bit that Adam was hesitant for me to publish, or I was hesitant because of QE's input, but Adam wanted me to publish, with the people that were covered on QE's live stream. That's QE Live on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel yesterday. But now that he's done his thing and is going through the ABCs of it from start to finish, I can then also publish, which I have now done, the preceding reactions from us, including Adam, who just watched the football yesterday. So you can hear a lot more of Adam's input on those first hour or so of video. Anyway, what else are we going to cover? Where are we? 25 minutes before we end this live stream. 2/3 of the way through, maybe.
I concur totally too, because just being there watching them two go at it and put this thing to life, it is really it's enjoyable. For me, it is.
Yeah, you're there, but obviously after myself. Neil's probably the person that's been the most involved in this process. So if it's me talking to the publisher with 10th Man, Neil's there. If it's me with, in this case, Adam and QE, Neil's there. You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong, Neil's not always there when I'm there, and I'm always there. It's my book. But of all the people, I know Neil won't get mentioned because he's done almost no work in that regard. He's just there. But you have been there, and I'm glad you take enjoyment from it, Neil, because, you have been there almost as much as I have for almost everything that's taken place to make this book be a thing, right?
Yeah, I'm the union leader.
If you say so. You can think of it as being the union leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you a travelling man, Neil?
No, but I'm them no-show jobs, when you go
What
there, I'm a union delegate.
I get
Meanwhile, I
accused,
get nothing.
I've learnt this now, so I could do this, right? I get accused of being a Freemason a lot, and asking somebody if they're a travelling man, like Will Duffy was asked, right? And then affirming in the positive that you are indeed a travelling man, aka Freemason, is something that I've learnt. Is it that they have to respond something along the lines of, I'm travelling from east to west? Is that what they have to say? Am I wrong?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm not a Freemason, but I learned this only recently, and I'm trying to parrot it verbatim, and I can't quite remember it correctly. I'm sure it's something like, yes, I am travelling from east to west.
Hopefully the insider will accidentally answer if we keep asking it.
Who's the insider? Is there a Freemason here? Somebody in the Discord a Freemason? Is it you, Steve?
So wait, east to west, that's linear, right?
No.
It's a straight path, isn't it?
No. Who's the Freemason then? Is there somebody in the Discord panel that's a Freemason? It's not me.
It could be me because you were asking me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm a traveler, man." I don't know what it meant though.
Well, I want to be able to answer this with the correct answer too, just for humorous effect, not because I want people to actually think I'm a Freemason. I'm not, but I'm sure there is a correct response, and it wasn't the response Duffy gave. All he was doing was affirming to somebody who's asking that question, "I'm a Freemason, yeah. If you're asking for the nod, here it is."
Wink, wink.
Exactly. Wink, wink. If they had hands, they'd be giving each other a funny handshake. Not if they had hands. If they had hands in each other's presence, is what I meant by that. Not that it matters. Again, this is all feast and nonsense that we're now like trying to prop up. What? Because of the Freemasons, that will only affect things that people have control of, like algorithmic censorship. Algorithmic my ass. Yeah, you can control that, right? The people who oppose you and prove you wrong really easily, you can just shut them down, not have them exposed to anybody. Oh no, he's here. Hey,
Yeah, you
Brian.
can go before Congress, then they can shut you down.
Exactly, because they've got complete control over those networks. Those are their systems. Well, they can control their systems so that their message reaches their people through their systems, obviously. I'd be stupid to think that that wouldn't be the case. I'm here only because they tolerate me. If I'm going to really assess it, what's YouTube? Their system? I'm only here because they tolerate me being here, really, Neil, aren't I? If I can eke a living out, I'm all right.
Well, it would be right now, at this stage, if you were to just disappear from YouTube, they can't do that. They cannot do that.
I'm sure they can.
Yeah, but it would just be that would hurt them if they did that. You know?
Nah.
Because more people will be like, "Whoa, Nathan, that Nathan Oakley show is just gone."
I think what you're perceiving as influence that I have is far more limited than you potentially give me credit for. And even if I do have some modicum of influence over the general masses of the public, it is so limited after the fact. That is to say, people are so fickle that if I was to just disappear tomorrow, I don't even matter. I really don't. Now, that might change after the book tour. You know, ask me that in 12 to 18 months' time when I'm in the midst of a promotional tour for a book that we've got out and boshed as a unit together in the most refined way possible. Ask me then whether or not that, you know, because my name's going to be on it.
Yeah, they still can't take the chance now. Even though you don't feel like you got a large influence, it may be very minute. But if something like that happened where they just cut your show out for no reason, that will go to the grapevine everywhere. And they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends. And then people will be aware of it. And that's not good. So they would hurt themselves, whoever they are, to just end your show. So you are here, and they're keeping you here.
You become a martyr, Nathan. Hey, here, thanks, everyone. That's what would
Exactly. You become a freaking internet martyr, right, Brian?
Yeah, anyone who becomes a martyr like that, everyone wants to know why that happened, who that person was, what they were saying, especially in today's world.
Exactly.
So what you're saying and what is said on the show will end up being aired in places it never was.
Right, so they can't afford that. So you're better off right here doing what you're doing.
What I just said right
Nope.
here is in amongst their system, which they do have control of, Neil. They're tolerating us being here.
Yeah, because it'd be detrimental if they do anything else, as Brian just explained. So they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for.
Who's
But if a
they?
three-letter agency tells YouTube
Well-
to cancel the show, then the consequences of doing so will be far greater than not doing so.
Correct. I think so. My opinion.
How did we go from talking about
Well,
angels?
you have to look at it from a logical point of view. Sorry.
Go on, Brian. What's this logical point of view we must look at it from?
Well, if they removed you, right, now, even if they left QE on, right, but they removed you, at that point, what they're doing is they're limiting the amount of actual correct information on the topic on their platform. And that means there's going to be more David Weiss type stuff than what is, relayed on this show and QE show. Because once they remove this show, you only have QE show and Ballbusters for the information that we would relay. Or maybe my channel, but my channel is very small. It's tiny in numbers in comparison to your channel. So like my point being is that you're going to end up in their mind possibly somewhere else, maybe Rumble or somewhere else. Because even if you stop doing this as a living, you would still do it. They fear maybe, or someone would invite you to do it somewhere else. The point being is that YouTube wouldn't have the cream of the crop in this arena then. They'd have QE, but they wouldn't have you. Now, even though you say they just tolerate you the same way as they just tolerate me, the point being is that you're not saying anything that's wrong. Neither am I. And most of the time, there's nothing controversial said, as in from a personal point of view. We work off of geometry, natural law, things like that. Things that are just true, and we point stuff out concerning that. Whereas you have David Weiss in that who works off of stuff that isn't always true. Some of the stuff he says is true, but a lot of it may not be, or may not be correctly researched, or whatever, because his attitude is different. The point being is that if I owned YouTube, I'd want, even if I'd subdued them, I'd want the best in the topic on my platform. Because if you're not on, if the best in the topic is not on their platform, then the best in the topic is going to be on someone else's platform. So it's a case of, if they want to stay being the best, they must keep people that literally are controversial, whether it be you, or it could be like let's just take Candace Owens. She's very controversial. She has upset the apple cart big time in France with the French president and his husband, wife. And the thing is that, do they want rid of Candace Owens? No, because she's going to end up somewhere else then, bringing an audience somewhere else. That weakens their platform. So if they want to be number one, they have to accept those that they don't like or don't agree with, or whatever. Now, we don't know if they don't like you or don't agree with you, but we do at this point that you're definitely subdued. So am I, so is QE. Flatside as well, he's subdued, but he don't really do the same thing anymore. But the point is that anyone who is promoting the same information as is promoted on this show is subdued. So it's up to them. They can either have it on their platform and keep control of it and keep it subdued, or they can allow it onto some other platform. And that's not what they want.
Fair enough. That makes sense. If it's tolerated, at least it's capable of a certain degree of control, is what you're saying. Makes sense.
Yeah, well, YouTube wants the best on their platform, because there is other platforms, Rumble and whatever else, and maybe Google doesn't own all of them. Maybe there's other platforms, and there's TikTok and that other places people can go. You can do live shows on X, and, so It's like we may as well hold on to them, even if we don't agree with them and don't want to promote them. We hold on to them and give them what just enough to keep them there. Then we'll have control of them. Our platform will have the cream of the crop. There isn't a Nathan Oakley on X, other than unless you have an account. There isn't a Nathan Oakley on TikTok unless you have an account there. But you don't have the same amount of airtime on X or on TikTok or wherever else, Rumble.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Makes sense. Well, it'd be nice to have something to tour with. So once the book's done, I'll have something to actually go out on people's platform with. A bit like Dave Weiss with his app.
I can't believe he's still pointing to that thing and selling it like he was when we reviewed that video the other day. I mean, that's got to be a smack in the face to people.
Yeah.
He don't care, though. He don't care. That's his
He doesn't.
focus.
Right. He cares about money. That's all he cares about. He don't give a crap as long as he's raking it in, because the end of that video, that's all they were going to end the show. It's like, wait, 1 minute before you end the show. I thought he had something important to say. Oh, he did. Important for him. And he just went through his whole app, spent another 3 minutes on the app. Freaking shyster.
Can you say that everything on that app is rubbish? No, there's going to be good stuff on there too. Like there's going to be something on there, especially for the newbie person, that will be good. There'll be plenty of stuff in there for conspiratorial types. People who lean really conspiratorial. There'll be that kind of stuff there.
Yeah, he's got experiments on there. You gather that'll be good, Brian. He's got a whole app on the app. He's got a section set up apart for the experiments that were done.
Yeah. He's selling rubbish and he's selling a dream, but he's selling what the average everyday person thinks they need to find. He's smart. Like he is smart. Getting the app together early and stuff like that was a smart move, and he cornered Mark Sargent's market in a lot of ways. He's not stupid. He's just not interested in. He's not interested. His focus is finances and promotion, and that's what his focus is. So at this, like him saying it could be a bigger ball, it's like that should tell you that he's willing to just whatever. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't. You know what I mean? He just say anything as long as the app is getting promoted. He knows it's not a bigger ball, but he's willing to say it.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
exactly. You can see his motivation, his incentive isn't the same as ours, right?
Like a used car salesman. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, you got it. I said double glazing salesman, but that was the vibe I was going for. Yeah, used car salesman. Exactly.
Yeah, Dave's second-hand auto kind of stuff on Broadway.
Well, yeah, I mean,
loads of radio adverts, and you know what I mean.
it's a little bit of.
All days.
It's also a little bit of projection on my part as I sell my second-hand microphones.
Yeah, but that's something. That's something you have to do, right? Because you got to make ends meet. You could be in a luxury right now on the freaking
Boat.
on the boat if you would have just sold out.
Sucked a bit of ether.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but the ether claim is being accepted far and wide by people that you wouldn't expect.
Of course.
There's a guy called I saw a video, last night from 11 months ago. It was on a channel by a guy called Richard Fogues. You would have seen him in the past. He is a bald guy with glasses, and he wears a kind of a cravat scarf thing. And he had a guy on. And this guy, Richard Fogues, I think he's possibly a flat earther at this stage, because he did start addressing flat earth, and he kind of went against it at first, but then I think he investigated it further. I'm not sure, but this guy Richard Vogues has a reasonably popular channel, and he promotes ether himself. And he had a guy on his show talking about mud flood and all this other stuff, and the ether. And like they weren't specifically talking about the ether, but when they were mentioning the ether, it was like a done deal, done deal. Like this is, and it's you know, it's a hidden thing, and you know what I mean. It's like you know, it's like your man, this guy Richard, even told a story about how he said publicly to a group of people. He said something about there was some mention of something, and it's like, you know, I would say, oh, it's just a flat stationary enclosed self-automated dynamic system, right? It's just a statement of fact, right? But he said something similar, but it wasn't a statement of fact. It was a big load of garble about some nonsense, probably mud flood or whatever. And ether was added in there. And he was saying, tell us some story of how he said this to some group of people publicly. I said it publicly, and people's jaws dropped and didn't know what to make out of it. So there's people out there just accepting this widely. And that other guy I told you about, that other guy who's supposedly investigating what happened to MH370, right? Who's believing all kinds of rubbish, right? And confirmation bias. He's the ultimate confirmation bias hog, because he's anything that comes his way that in any way supports what he thinks is the truth of what happened to MH370. He has this orb theory, colloquial. He just jumps on it, and this guy literally is like it's nearly word for word when you hear him speak about certain things. It's nearly word for word exactly the same rubbish as with it. I mean, literally word for word. Now, I haven't heard him say the term ether yet, but he's saying all the same exact stuff. And he's relating all this stuff to what happened to MH370, the plane, Malaysian Airlines, which I think is crazy to be doing, considering that whole plane full of people went missing. But this guy, so here's two pretty reasonably popular YouTubers who are just like pumping out a heap of complete rubbish that is basically a load of ether.
Do you think it's there? Do you think it's propped up again to disband people in the future? Because each of these layers, like ether, like 9/11 truth, all of these things that originally were put at us like we flat earthers were muddying the waters of their investigations into things like 9/11, when in reality they're completely unrelated subjects. And for any endeavours that people look at in conspiracy circles like 9/11 truthers, are unrelated to the nature of the measured earth that we stand on. But it's got to be convoluted in with those things, much to their annoyance, where they think flat earthers, the bullshit feast of nonsense, Ethereum version of flat earth, convolutes and muddies the waters for other people's investigations into where the world is actually being, actively deceived or hoaxed, or however you want to describe it. So for that reason, you've got to have a controlled narrative where ether and things of that nature is constantly pumped out by people like Witsit and repeated by their followers. Now, for me, when I put out good arguments, and I say me, I'm not just taking credit for good arguments we all use, it's just people say these words, well, that's just a Nathan argument, or that's just a QE argument. You'll hear that parroted to sort of demean the good arguments, when in reality the garbage arguments are only spread through repetition. So they need to demean anybody repeating the good arguments as though it's just a parroting of a person, me in this instance, rather than just an understanding of the argument, when their false message gets peddled by two people repeating the verbatim message one for one on different shows at different times, which is Brian's point in this example, right, Brian?
Yeah, I think that how they're using ether is a common ground between flat and globe. Why I say that is this guy, the MH370 investigator guy, he's a total globe or idiot. I mean, this guy is a major bozo, right? But he says exactly what Witsit says. Now, I can't say I heard him say the word ether, or he may have, but I can nearly 100% put a bet on it that he is absolutely a believer in the ether. And this guy Richard Vogels, he wasn't a flat earther, but I think he is more of a flat earther now, or way more open to it. The point I'm making is there was no bridge or middle common ground between flat and globe until the ether turned up. But now there is the ether. So people can disagree on whether the earth is a globe or it's flat, but they can all agree on the ether existing. And it's like then whether it's flat or a globe is diminished. And what's important is the ether exists. Do you know what I mean? To say like, and it's like that suits them perfect. That's perfect. Then they're not passionate about whether it's flat or a globe. They're passionate about whether ether exists. Because if they're passionate about whether it's flat or a globe, it'll be shown that it's flat and not a globe, which is not what they want. So
Right,
it's like,
but
go on, John.
I was just going to say, look, Einsteinian and Ethereum both believe in the inertial plane. You know, that's agreed upon right away.
Yeah, but the thing about the ether and the belief of that spanning across the flat and globe arenas, because it's a debate in both, takes away from the flat, whether it's flat or a globe, and it becomes a thing where people start agreeing, certain people on either side start agreeing that, well, okay, you don't agree that it's flat, we don't agree that it's a globe, but we all agree that ether exists. Do you know what I mean? So we have common ground. So suddenly all these people will be friends, and the flat versus globe thing won't be so important, which is what they want, because that is the big topic. So suddenly that is diminished in its importance, right? Whereas if ether didn't exist, those people would not be meeting on the middle ground because there wouldn't be one. So that's how I view it. I view it as a psychological operation, basically.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, like, the astral nature of the ether, right? It's they're the same by their very descriptions. You know, space, time, ether. It's all the same thing. The descriptions are the same. They just use different words to refer to the same thing.
Yeah, but that's the point. It can fit a globe just perfect. Or you can fit it in a flat earth that fits whatever you want it to fit. Is the point I'm making. And then people aren't so concerned about whether you, like, I'm not so concerned if you say it's a globe, and you're not so concerned if I say it's flat, because we're both ether bodies. You know what I mean? They're stopping they're creating a middle ground, a friendly place of complete nonsense. That way, there's a whole group of people on either side that aren't going to be having the argument about whether it's flat or globe. They're going to be interested. They're going to be all holding hands in an ether circle.
Yeah, they can meditate. Trust me, bro.
Yeah, exactly, and argue with a load of people on either. Argue with people like us who say it's a load of rubbish and prove it's a load of rubbish, and people on the globe side who would say similar.
Or anybody with a profundity towards ether. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Primary streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Fortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out a bit of the book editing on the previous video to this one on the Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. I've been Nathan Oakley. Another massive thank you to my Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible, and I will see you all in the next video.